Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Joining me today is Allan Carraway. He's from FocalPoint Coaching in Alaska, He's the amazing Allan Carraway who will take your cares away. Love it. But I wanted to have you on the show for so many different reasons. One being that we have this great rapport from like start to finish, like every conversation we ever had. You make me laugh. You do some great things in your coaching, and you've got some great projects going on. So why don't you just take this time to kind of give a quick introduction to yourself here? So welcome.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Allan Carraway. I like to say that for the last 20 some odd years, I've either been in business or teaching it. I started my first business when I was 17 years old, out of a local high school, actually a local community and trade high school. That honestly saved my high school diploma. I was probably pretty much ready to be done with school before that. Mm-hmm. So I started a DJ business, a radio and video production business. That lasted very shortly. I had a vending business for a while, and then I had a chain of cafes here in town for about 16 years. Mm-hmm. And a little fun fact for y'all. Anchorage, Alaska is the most competitive landscape for coffee in the world. There are more coffee shops per capita right here than there are anywhere else.
Very nice. That's where I have to go to get a good cup of Joe then, I guess, huh?
You'll definitely find one.
But yours was the best.
Absolutely. And I was not bashful about telling people that we had the best coffee in the whole building.
Very nice. Yes. The most terrific coffee anywhere in these four walls.
We were the most okayest coffee in town. Now, we had a very good reputation. I joke, but I had a 100% money back guarantee, satisfaction guarantee. I'd make somebody drink 10 times if they didn't like it. If they're like, oh, it's just a little too much vanilla, or a little too less vanilla. Well, I don't care. To me, my signature was on every cup I made. And my purpose in life was not to sell coffee. My purpose in life is, to help,
right?
To make people happy. And even in that environment, even if I could just take it was in a medical building. My first and last location was in a medical building. So a lot of times I'm seeing people on some of the worst days of their life. Mm-hmm. And if there's anywhere in that building that they wanted to go, it was to see me. Mm-hmm. So that was truly an exercise in joy and human servitude.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you, because it really is a joy to talk to you. You get that sense all the time in every conversation I've had with you. I mean, even before we started recording, and even when we started recording, I was just laughing so hard that I can't even get the intro out, right?
I'm addicted to joy.
Yeah, well, and that it comes through. And that's what we need more of in this world. So I wanted my guests to hear more about you. So you started this coffee chain as your sort of second business at a high school. Yeah. And
left the story half finished, didn't I?
It's okay. It's okay, because like there's so much there, right?
We know what we're doing every second here. We have a perfect agenda,
and here it is, right? But like I feel like just what you were just talking about, how to get that right cup of coffee and make someone feel good, like especially on like the worst day of their life, being in mm-hmm. A hospital, or whether it's for themselves or a parent or a friend, or another family member. Sometimes a simple thing like a cup of coffee can make or break your day, right?
100%. Yeah, you get a bad one, man, and you'll hear about it.
Yeah.
Like if somebody in your office gets a bad coffee, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I got this coffee and blah, blah, blah. It tastes like dirt. And I can't make it to the meeting today. I got a bad coffee this morning. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
I pulled you over. Well, I had a bad coffee this morning. I think that's probably why.
It's like in the movie Elf with Will Ferrell. It was the best coffee ever. So, yeah. Oh man. So, okay, let's get back on track here. But So you had your coffee shop. Where
Yeah.
to next? What happened after that?
Well, I think it was working in the coffee shop where I realized that when I was younger, I was skilled in teaching, but I think I was afraid of teaching for all the wrong reasons. Growing up in the 1980s, teachers were not necessarily as universally loved as they are today. And growing up in a family, my father was the first to get off of the dirt ground cabin in the rural South. For me, I set my sights on gold. But when I was working and really getting a chance to serve other human beings, it made me realize how much I truly enjoyed teaching and sharing the few small things I figured out how to do in my life. And so I started coaching. I started coaching businesses. I've done that for the better part of 10 years now. I did it. I got an opportunity to work with the small business development centers, which, if you're not familiar with them, America's SBDC is a great resource. SBDCs are all over the country. They're chartered with a grant through the Small Business Administration, and they provide free services to all businesses that qualify. So by all means, I recommend checking them out. And then, just a little bit ago, I branched out on my own and found FocalPoint, and decided to bring that to the state of Alaska. And the rest is history. It's been absolutely magical. I've coached hundreds of businesses in my times, all across the spectrum, about anything you can think of, from salads and mason jars to, how do I start my own oil company?
How do you do that?
Well, what kind of oil would you like to mine? Wesson oil? Okay, go to the grocery store and
how did you overcome, not come over? How did you overcome?
How do I do my comb over? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, exactly. We need to know. As the listeners of the podcast have to go to YouTube to see that. But no, I like, how did you overcome, like, your sort of fear of teaching and like that, that impasse?
That is an excellent question. And it is super hard, because in every interaction that we have, especially with somebody brand new, there's an opportunity for absolute disaster. That we could say something that will set them on their heels or make them angry or whatever. But there's also an opportunity to make a friend. And so I think for me, it was being able to just tap into that universal love for humanity that I have. I unconditionally love every person I've ever met. I may not like some of them, or I may not want to be around them or want them around me, but I love them. And I believe that they deserve respect and happiness and all of those things. So for me, in a situation when I step in front of an audience, like some people say, imagine them all in their underwear or something like that. Well, that's not me. I just imagine every one of those strangers in that room is a friend that I haven't met yet. And I try to universally love them.
That's a good way to look at it, and a good mentality to have. It's kind of like that, not quite like turn the other cheek. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this. It's kind of like,
trying to come up with a cheeky comment, are you?
Cheeky comment. No, you really just want to expect or, push out the best in people and look for the best in every situation. And I love that. That's awesome. Something else that popped in my head and I was kind of looking really quickly for is when you were talking about the joy of teaching and how they're not as respected as they were, or how they're more respected today than they were. It made me think of this comic, and I'll just pull it up really quick to share. But do you remember that? Have you ever seen this?
Yes.
Yep. So, and it's funny because I would update this picture for today even more with putting the administration sometimes, also pointing, explain these bad grades, right? So for those that can't see this comic, in 1969, it used to be explain these bad grades, and the parents are kind of looking down at the child. And now today it's explain these bad grades, and the parents are pointing to the book and really taking it to the teacher with a proud child standing next to it. So it's just funny perspective, right? And being that, I have a wife that's a teacher and I work at a university and, those types of things, it is interesting, like, kind of where over time, different, cultures and different people, like growing up in generations, have like viewed education differently and viewed
Mhm.
treating people differently. So the question that I'm building up to here is, in your coaching, in your business coaching, how do you, um, what is your tactic for working with different people, right? Not always the same tactic.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I don't necessarily know which tools I'm going to deploy in any particular given engagement with a potential client,
Hmm.
but I think that I do approach them all the same way. And if I were to describe that process, I guess it would be like a golden retriever. I got my mouth shut, my tail wagging. Or another metaphor I like to use is I show up like a tourist looking for directions. Sometimes, like especially in referrals, somebody refers somebody to me, they might be like, "Hey, Alan, listen, all right, come here, buddy. We got to talk. So this guy's really messed up. Here's the situation. They got blah 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 blah. They got employee problems. They can't keep anybody in the door. Their inventory's walking out. Blah blah." And anyways, but then I walk into that conversation with that person even after the referral, and I know all that background information. I'm like, "So, tell me what's working really well for you.
Hmm.
What's the best thing that you've got going on right now? What are you the most excited about? All right, now what are you the most afraid of? What are you finding your organization struggling with?"
Hmm.
And in that process, I found that there are some coaches that will come into that situation with a predestined solution.
Hmm.
Like, all right, we have employee issues, so I'm going to deploy a communications program and employee learning program, and et cetera, et cetera. But regardless of whether or not that's the right option,
Hmm.
it's not the right option until the client, the business owner, is ready for it.
Yeah.
And if I do my job perfectly, I mean perfectly, not great. If I do my job perfectly, you never know I helped you because you
Hmm.
come up with the ideas. I help you find the idea that works right for you. And the benefit
Awesome.
there, the difference is that I'm not the person coming in and giving you a solution that you don't own, that
Hmm.
doesn't belong to you. But by helping you find the right solution for yourself, your idea, you love it.
Hmm.
Like there's a great quote by Leonard Cohen where he talks about the truest authenticity that we have is that idea comes from us. It's our own
Hmm.
idea. To
Hmm.
me, I kind of see myself more like Mr. Miyagi. After the fight's over, I kind of fade into the background.
Hmm. Awesome. And I also feel like that's that teach someone to fish kind of mentality too. But even a little bit further, you're not like necessarily showing the rod and the reel and how to do the hook. They're kind of figuring it out on their own and you're
Yeah,
supporting them, right? And
yeah.
going back to how your referrals and how some of them work, it makes me wonder when you got me as a referral, like, this Nick guy, he's got a podcast, he doesn't know it at all. Right? You need to help him. He needs you. He needs you to help him and support him through trying to figure out what the heck is going on in his business, his life, and his podcast. But no, I had to go back to that. But no, I love that approach because you're right. There is more ownership in that when, like, with a lot of people, who doesn't like their own idea, right?
Yeah.
So very
Yeah.
cool. So speaking of referrals and things like that, how like do you normally, connect with your potential clients and what kind of things are you looking to help with?
Well, that's another good question. To answer the first part, I show up in the community on a constant basis. The way I've structured my business, I spend half of my time doing revenue generating activities, seeking clients and stuff like that. The other half of my time, I actually give freely to the community. I provide free coaching through programs here in town. There's some accelerator programs that I support. There's a local incubator that I spend an entire morning at. So I show up to the community first and foremost. I put myself out there, and so I think that makes me visible, and people seek me out. Also, I am a proponent of a technique that a colleague of mine developed called the Champions List. There's a great book called Champions Never Make Cold Calls. It's on Amazon, and it's basically how you really love on your contacts, and honestly, that's what it is. It's not transactional. I'm not reaching out to people trying to get them to refer to me. I'm just being a friend. I'm just showing up with high value and low attachment, and offering whatever assistance I can. And that's been very fortuitous for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's what drew me in to talk to you so much, is the genuine, like, you have a genuine need to help. I feel it's not just a genuine availability or, offer of helping and supporting. I feel like you thrive on that energy, and it's so awesome to be able to kind of feel sort of an instant comfort when you're talking to Allan. He takes your cares away. That's going to be the theme and the title of this episode.
We're gonna have to make that a tagline or something.
Yeah. So
take your cares away with FocalPoint.
Yeah, FocalPoint. We'll take your cares away. So, but I think that's
Side effects
important.
may include laughing, hysterics, extra free time, better relationships with friends and family, and great success at work.
I just see you like, hi, I'm not a doctor, and I haven't played one on TV, but
I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express, though.
Yes. So, but I think that there's there's many different types of coaches. We've had a bunch on the show, and they all have their little niche areas and their different methods. Some are more, like you said, structured than others, with like, here's the plan, right? Here's my, my 3-step program, right? So, to kind of go back to like, Napoleon Dynamite there. But like, I think that it's important to kind of show up the way that you're showing up, and to have that genuineness, because you get more referrals from that, right? You get more people that are interested, and maybe it's a slow burn. But I think that is great and commendable. So thank you.
Well, if I could just take a step back here.
Sure.
I just want to make a slight correction. And this is important to me, not really important to the rest of the world. But my goal in life is not to get referrals. My goal in life is not even to get clients. My purpose, and I just want to live in a better world. I genuinely want to live in a better world, a world where people are maybe just a little bit kinder to each other. The world's just a little bit more accessible for those of us with, like me, with severe neurodiversity and things like that. I just genuinely want to live in a better world. And I recognize that better world requires effort, that it requires a lot of people doing things that are very uncomfortable. And so my goal in life is just to show up and do my part in that regard, in the way that I see that I can provide the biggest benefit and the biggest value for this planet. So that's my goal. And along the way, and the reason that I separate it like that is, let me tell you a story about a client that I'm working with. I met this young kid. He's, in his 20s. So everyone's young to me now, the older I get. Looking like the old man lives up here on this mountain here. Yeah, you dang kids, get out of my raspberry pitch. I don't know. Anyway, so this kid was referred to me, and so I meet with him, and I'm chatting with him and everything, and he's talking about, I'm hoping that I can get up to $3,000 or $4,000 a month. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, all right, so there's not really a lot of room for a coach in this conversation, but whatever. I'm going to talk to him and help him, and I completely open about what I do and everything. I let him know what my fee structure looked like. And he came back and he says, what if if I could give you 1/4 of your monthly retainer, would you meet with me once a month? And I was like, you know what? That's an amazing idea, but I don't think that'll work. I think you need more help than that. But I'll tell you what, I'll take what you're offering, and I'm going to coach you every single week, but I'm going to make you a counter offer. How much do you make in what you're doing? How much do you charge for your services? And he says, about $44 an hour. And I says, okay, and is that what you want it to be? And he's like, well, in a few years, I'd like to see it get up to around $100 an hour. I says, okay, I'm going to pay you that right now. So here's the deal. I'm going to take what you're giving me, and at $100 an hour, you don't owe me a thing. You owe the universe the difference in service, whatever that means to you. Do you want to go down to the soup kitchen and hand out soup for 23 hours a month? Cool. Do you want to go, or whatever? Do you want to go teach origami at the senior center? Cool. Whatever you want to do, put good into the universe and do so in the quantity of time that you are missing. And you know what? You don't owe me a thing. You paid full price. You can look the world in the eyeballs. And the best part is you make the world a better place.
And that is what this podcast is all about. Like something that you're just doing, giving back, and you're coaching, helping someone be a better business person, but you're also coaching them to be a better person that's more interactive and impactful in their community. Which hopefully will be another way to pay it forward, is that other people will lead by that example that person is doing. So I love it.
Sorry.
No.
I just wanted to add where that comes from is, I think it was really during the recent pandemic. I don't know if it was, the first 3 or 4 or 5, 10 years of the pandemic, whatever. But I looked around and I realized on December 20th, you go to the soup kitchen and everybody's there, right? The governor, the mayor, everybody wants to get their picture taken handing out soup. But who's down there today?
Right.
Who's hanging out in the soup kitchen today? And what I found is it tends to be the people that got soup in that line 2 weeks ago. The people that know the struggle that it is to be suffering in that time. And because they understand that suffering so much on such a deep level, they can't stand the thought of somebody else suffering. And they're motivated to that point to give back. It makes me wonder, what would happen if those were the people that we supported, that we put our time and our love and our effort and our tools and expertise into? I have to think they'd build a better world than we have today.
Yeah.
I have to think so. And so I'm very motivated by that. Now, I also want to say that I'm not right for everyone. I can't coach or motivate every single kind of person that's out there.
Yeah.
And I have a strong community bent. So I won't work with any individual or organization that doesn't have some community bend to them, that they're not trying, they don't actively participate in some way or whatever, or are not trying to actively find some way to give back. It's not that I don't have a problem with folks that, the Gordon Geckos of the world or whatever. It's just, I'm probably not the best coach for them.
And that's a good, stance to have, because I've, interacted with coaches that they just want the client, right? And it's in their best interest. And, that's just not a great way to, first of all, a great way to do your business. It alienates a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But, and then if you take on those clients and you don't really help them, you're hurting your business. You're hurting your image. I've talked, like I said, I've talked to a couple different coaches on the show, and it's always great when you have someone that says, hey, I might not be the best coach for this type of person or for you, but I've even had someone that says, I'll refer them to someone who I think they'd be a great fit with.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that that's a great mentality to have. And again, I know you're not in it for the referrals, but I think that gives you more referrals, at least gives you more connections and a stronger network going, you know what, I'm going to talk to that Allan guy, because, he's been known to take cares away. And that's what we're
keep that running joke going here
the whole time, even after we're done. Like, people that don't know Allan, I'm going to say, well, you need to know Allan because he takes.
Just going to start getting random calls. I need my cares taken away. All right.
Yeah.
Patch you through, Allan.
Patch you through. You're on one.
It's me answering the phone, but I'm just going to patch you through, put you on hold, and laugh for a minute.
You're your own answering service. That's awesome. Please hold for Allan. All right. No, but I think like I said, it's so great to have you on the show because of everything that you try to do is exactly what I'm trying to do with That Sounds Terrific, which is just get people thinking more about giving back.
Yes.
So if you had a piece of advice for somebody who was looking to become like a coach or someone like you, where do they start?
I have a friend and colleague here in town.
So they start in Alaska. Okay.
Yes, they. As I say, I
Sorry.
have a friend here, Jacqueline Summers, who likes to say, if you want to figure out your own business, help somebody else in their business. Get involved in another startup. What my recommendation would be is to, first of all, orient yourself to the community, to the and specifically the entrepreneurship community. 1 Million Cups is a great place to start. The number one, millioncups.com. That is a free program that was started by the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City, where entrepreneurs meet every week, Wednesday mornings, usually in coffee shops, conference halls across the fruited plains, over the conversation of what can the entrepreneurial community do to support entrepreneurs. So that's a great place to start. And in those communities, you may meet other business owners, other coaches, other investors, accountants, and support personnel throughout the industry. The Small Business Development Center, every state has one. There's hundreds of them across the country, so there's likely one very close to you, if not maybe a short drive away. Get on their mailing lists, get on their newsletters, and they'll let you know the events that are coming up. Get to those gatherings. In coaching, just like anything, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so you've got to get out there and, get those boots on the ground and just show up in the community and do so without expectation. Just show up and keep showing up.
Yeah.
And that's, in my opinion, that's the way it works. Again, like that Labrador, or like that golden retriever. You just keep showing up with your tongue hanging out and your tail wagging, and eventually somebody's going to, they're going to notice you.
Yeah. Leads to a lot of different things, networking. I run a career support group on the side. I've mentioned it on the show before, and having people continue to network after they get that dream job is super important. Continue to show up, continue to like connect with other businesses and your competitors. Like, understand why they're your competitors, right? A lot can change in your dream job. People get laid off.
I don't have any competitors.
Yeah, no.
I have colleagues.
Colleagues, exactly. But like,
I love all the coaches I've ever met.
But you get what I'm saying. I mean, things
I'm teasing.
change in environments change. And like, I've talked a lot about assessment, because again, college, higher education, but like, you could have a really successful program that's been successful for 15 years. It's your biggest money, bringer inner. There's a technical term.
The bringer inner. That's
biggest money bringer inner. Yeah.
We love language here. We so much so that we will make our own.
But like, the point is, society might change, your contracts might change, and if you're not like assessing that as you go along, your biggest moneymaker might end up being the biggest flop and cause you to lose your business or cut employees or things like that. So constantly looking at what competitors are doing, what other businesses are doing, like, and are helpful, and communicating gives you more partnerships or potential partnerships. That's the best kind of marketing you can have, right? That word of mouth marketing. So cool. Great advice. Loved it. So as I alluded to in the beginning of the conversation, aside from your amazing FocalPoint coaching experience, there's a lot of things that you're doing. You've already talked a little bit about, some of the ways that you're giving back to community, but what other projects are you working on? Who is Allan, and what else is he up to?
Well, let's see here. I'm also working on a personal project. Well, it's professionally linked, but I call it the Pivot Project. And in my experience, especially working as a public service coach through the pandemic that we just experienced, we all collectively experience something together, but not all of us experience it exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And through that period of time, there were a lot of days where I would never consider myself to be like a first responder, but in those days, it felt like I was a business first responder,
Mm-hmm.
where we're having conversations with the business owner and holding their hand while their business is, on the table, breathing its last breath.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes. There's so much, that you put pressure and heat on things. That's, you get change, you get metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we've experienced an amazing metamorphosis over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you compress people and you tell them they can't do something, they find ways. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. How do we do this? Well, we can't do this. It doesn't exist. Well, then we need to invent it. We need to discover it. We need to find out what that is. And I believe that happened a lot during this period of time.
Sure.
And I want to capture those stories. So I've been on a mission to meet with 1,000 entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and community leaders as well, about their experience through the pandemic, specifically looking at ways that they were able to pivot, change directions, or find a way. And also how they were able to lean into and support their community during that time. And man, I have had some amazing conversations, some real fascinating discussions about, small pivots or large ones. I was talking to a tourism company that had a whole bunch of buses. And when in March of 2020, it was martial law, right? It was stay in your homes.
Yeah.
Don't go to the store, order takeout.
Yeah.
So nobody, even if tourists were here, they were stuck in their hotels. They couldn't go anywhere and do anything.
Sure.
So tourism didn't exist. And they were able to use those buses to support the free lunch program with the schools to deliver that food to the students that needed it.
Yep.
So, I mean, those are amazing stories. It's
Yeah.
amazing, and I love that feeling I get when I'm reminded that humans care about other humans.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always see it. I mean, there's always examples, and we can all think of times that the opposite is the case. But when you confirm the human condition as being real and authentic, it's just such an amazing and personal thing for me.
Yeah, and I had the pleasure of being interviewed by you for that, and I thank you for that. It was a cool experience. Hopefully, I shared some amazing stories and turning points as well.
Got a whole chapter.
Yeah, I got a whole whole volume reference set.
Yes.
No,
a
but
do's and a don't section. I'll let you figure out which one you're
in. Thank you for that. But we'll definitely have in the show notes how to get in touch with Allan and specifically about this project as well.
Yes, I'd love that.
I think it'd be really cool for others to have that opportunity to speak with you one-on-one and talk about how they pivoted, because the show, like as I shared with you, was a pivot in itself. Like That Sounds Terrific came about because of the pandemic, because I was looking for work, and I needed a way to kind of get myself out there a little bit more and kind of explore not only the world but myself again. Right, I had been so used to doing a specific job and never thought about changing that. Right. And now I'm in a great position where I do some similar things to what you're doing, connecting people and doing business engagement for the Center of Excellence in Data Science at U of R. And I can't tell you how many times I've set up a call with someone like yourself to talk about maybe the podcast, and all of a sudden we're talking about data science, or I'm like, this would be a great data science business to connect with, and all of a sudden we're talking about the nonprofit that they fund on the side and how they need help getting the word out there, and it's a passion because of whatever. But going back to like some of the points that I think you've been making all along the way, it's all about those connections, and that can happen anywhere. And so when you have a business that you said like is on the table, you're holding that hand of that CEO or that entrepreneur, watching their business and their livelihood fail in front of them and die, is an important to remember. And I think you or alluding to this, is that from death comes life, right?
That's right.
So that pivot, transformation, exactly. And that's got to be a really horrible like moment to be in at the time, like where this person is just like, what am I gonna do? But to be at that next point where they realize, here's the pivot and here's what it's gonna become, and then the success from that pivot, that's got to be an amazing feeling. Do you have, I'm sure you have a lot of stories, but do you have a story that's really coming to you right now that you could share about a moment of a pivot like that?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that not everyone is able to do that. And that's okay too. You know, I'm not judging anyone or standing in a position of saying, you know, the good business owner does this and the bad business owner does that. It's not that.
Yeah.
Not everyone is able to quickly pick up those pieces. Some people, you know, will suffer that experience and boom, right back into corporate America or right back into whatever, you know, and that's their journey perhaps, and that's okay. And maybe they come back and try a business or something different at another point in time. Other people, bam, you know, you want a great example of a pivot. So I'm an Android guy, you know, full disclosure, but Steve Jobs, you know, started a company with a buddy in his garage to make computers. And the one person's like, you know, Wozniak's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had a computer? And Steve Jobs is like, wouldn't it be cool if we sold a computer to everyone in the country?
Yeah.
Boom, the thing explodes. And then what happens? He got fired from his own company. You know, and if you launched, a company that was iconic in a particular industry, and then you get canned from your own board, you know, how many business owners would consider that the end? They'd be like, well, you know, we took a bite of the apple. It was fun. Got all these, you know,
bite of the apple
stock options here. I'm just going to ride out the rest of my time in Tahiti or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not what he did. You know, he licked his wounds. He came back. He created Next Computing. He started a little company called Pixar. I don't know if any of y'all ever heard of that. That eventually got sold to Disney. And then when he came back, I think it was 97? Or 87, 97, I don't remember. Anyways, when he came back to Apple, when he was hired back at Apple, he came back with just a completely new perspective, a fresh perspective, and new mission, vision. He went back to the beginning, analyzed his core values. And from that, he was able to come up with the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, you know, things that now, I mean, how iconic do you have to be to get an entire generation named after you? You know, now we're calling, you know, Gen Z is iGen. So it's, you know, that's, I think if you, in any situation, there's a great book called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine. And in that book, he talks about there's a gift for each of these things. There's a gift of knowledge or a gift of strength. And so in these moments, when you're just suffering this unbelievable setback, the best thing we can do is look for those lessons. You know, look for what can I carry away from this that makes me a better person.
Allan, you're a gift.
Whoa.
Yeah. I think, you know, what you do and these connections that you're, you know, helping my audience to make, connections that you're helping others to see, and your community is becoming more connected. So I love it. You're absolutely right. That not everybody is able to pivot. It's very individual, and the pivot might take a long time, right? Mine took over a year, and it wasn't complete. I want to get out of higher ed. I went as the Alzheimer's Association. I loved what I was doing. It was a great organization, great way to give back, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And I found myself back in higher ed, in a role that I never, ever thought I would get because of some of the rules, the unspoken rules in higher ed. There's probably a position, if my friend had not told me you should try out for this, this is a great position for you, I probably would have never applied for it. But I was able to do that because of, you know, sort of a mental change and the pivot in me that took a long, slow burn, you know, to happen. So, but what you're saying just makes great sense. And thank you. That's all I have to say.
Well, a big part of it is fighting back the shame.
Mhm.
Shame is a killer. Shame 100. I've seen it so many times where amazing human beings have just been dropped to their knees from shame and never returned from it.
Mhm.
And so in those moments, a lot of times people are like, I'm ruined and it's all my fault. I'll give you a personal example.
Mhm.
In 2007, I opened my third cafe downtown Anchorage. And I crushed it. My first two, I opened my first location and I paid the rent the first day. It was
Mhm.
amazing how good things went. When I got to my third location, all of my market research was wrong. It was a completely different market. I wasn't selling to Alaskans, selling to tourists. And
Right.
surprise, if somebody's coming up here from Atlanta, maybe they don't like coffee as much as we do up here where it's cold. I
Mhm.
don't know. So I got soaked on that deal. It hit me for about 40 grand.
Mhm.
I think, I don't remember the number. It's like a fish now. It keeps getting
Yeah.
bigger. I tell
Yeah.
this story.
It's $4 million
It
in that
was, yeah,
cafe.
I lost a couple bill on that one. It was, it's so much to invest in a coffee shop. I should have known better, but whatever.
Yeah.
But that was one, like, I built the counter myself in my neighbor's garage. We, put in pastry cases. It was a whole mobile unit and everything. So I put a lot of love into that one. And I realized like 2 or 3 weeks in, but I'd made a commitment to the
Sure.
building there. They said, look, if you tap out 3 weeks in, I can't get somebody else in here. So you
Yeah.
got to stick it out for the summer. And so if I was a smart person, I would have said, all right, I'll send you your rent check in the mail every month, but I ain't coming back. But,
Right.
I remembered my dad, when I was a little kid being like, when you make a commitment, son, you need to honor those things.
Yeah.
So,
Been there.
I stuck it out through the summer. And when I closed that business, I think the biggest thing for me was that all of the the good feelings that I had about my skills as a business owner were now gone, and they were replaced by, look what you did to your family.
Mhm.
Look what you did to your employees. Everyone else has to pick up the pieces for your mistake, and that shame is a killer. That's I would spare anyone that if I can. You know what? It's too late for that. You made the mistake, maybe, or maybe it's not even your fault. Maybe whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, however you find yourself in this situation, it doesn't matter whose fault
Mhm.
it is. What matters is where you go from here. How do we pick back up and find our way back or find our way on to the next destination? And what I found, and actually not what I found, I read a study about this later.
Mhm.
I may not pat myself on the back for something I didn't do. I read a study about this, that the difference between the most successful entrepreneurs and those that are not the most successful is how quickly they can get back up on their feet after a mistake.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Failure is
important.
not the antithesis of success. It's just a step in the process.
Yeah. It's a learning opportunity, and every failure can bring you to a different, different solution.
Yep.
Could be a different kind of company, and
Mhm.
it's so funny because there's some, well, not some, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that maybe they don't even fail at something. They do something so well
Yeah.
that they're done with it. Now let's move on to something else, right? Um, so very cool. So Alan, you've given us a lot of great advice. You've given us a lot of thoughts that we, need to compile and think about, right? Um, if you could give, like, one more, piece of advice, something that maybe you live by or you find um very helpful in your day-to-day life, what would that be?
Get really clear on where you want to go. Whatever that means. In today, if you're in job A and you want to be in job B, get really clear on what that looks like. If you want to start your own business, think about and try and visualize as much as you can what that's all about. You want to lose weight, visualize. Start by getting really clear on your point B, on where you want to go. The clearer that becomes, the more that you can visualize, that point B, the more real it becomes. And then what I found, well, let me back up a step. Next step is figuring out what's in the way. Why am I not there already? Why can't I have what I want?
Mm-hmm.
And then figuring out how to overcome those things. But what I've found is when you know what you want, when that vision becomes clear, it's almost like a Star Wars tractor beam just pulls you towards your goal, and to prove this, have you ever seen children, how they approach problem solving? I mean, it's impressive. Kids will fail hundreds of times trying to get the cookies off the countertop. They'll bring in a step stool, and then on top of that, they put the dining room table and then a bread box and, a Lego, whatever. And so, but really get clear on where you want to go, on what that future vision is. And the more clear you can get, the more real that feels for you, then the more the present tense starts to taste a little bit more bitter. And the more you really pine and desire that future. And when you desire that future strong enough, and you have the right help, guide along the way, whatever, there's nothing that can stop you.
Amazing, Allan. I can't think of a better way to end this. You've been a terrific guest. You're a terrific coach. Great advice. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your own personal study on people pivoting. So if you need to get in contact with Allan, check out the show notes and make sure you connect with him, because he will change your life for the better. And it's not because he's looking to be your business coach. He's looking to be your friend. I love it. So thank you, Allan, for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.